Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. This is Rev Rich. As always, this is Wisdom Wednesday. I know we've missed 2 weeks. As I said, first week we had a big convention with the Urban Ministerial School, Unity Urban Ministerial School. Loved it, had some great workshops, great things, and I really, again, give thanks to the planning committee I was on, because not only were they there for us to plan, but they were also my support during a time in my life where changes were happening. So I definitely want to thank each and every one of you. And as always, like, share, subscribe. If you like this message, you need someone to hear it, please go ahead and share it, and hit the bell so that you know when we launch another one. And again, I hope you're plugging into our daily dose of Advent. As you can see by the candles, we are celebrating the Advent season. And I'm doing a daily dose of Advent every day. And on Sundays, my daughter and I celebrate the lighting of the next candle. So that being said, today I want to talk about the first week of Advent, which is hope and faith. Now, why do we put both? Well, as a Catholic, prior to joining Unity, we would celebrate the first Sunday of Advent as hope. In Unity, I was taught that hope was to become faith. And I read the definition on Monday, but I wanted to do it again today just to give you a little bit. So Unity co-founder Charles Fillmore wrote in the Revealing Word, hope is a quality of sense mind because it is the subject to time. When we talk about sense mind, we're talking about that ego mind, that self-actualized part of our mind. It's the part of us that starts to take information from outside using our senses. So we're not coming from the inside out, we're going from the outside in. So we're taking it from the senses. So we hope that things happen. So I have a story that goes with that, which I thought worked well. And the story is called The Law of the Pendulum. It says a teacher was presenting his students the law of the pendulum and what it was. The law of the pendulum can never return to a point higher than the point from which it was released. Because of friction and gravity, when the pendulum returns, it will fall short of its original release point. Each time it swings, it makes less and less of an arc until finally it is at rest. The point of rest is called the state of equilibrium, where all forces acting on the pendulum are equal. To demonstrate the point, he attached a 3-foot string to a child's toy top, and secured it to the top of the blackboard with a thumbtack. Pulled the top to one side and made a mark on the blackboard where he let it go. Each time it swung back, the teacher made a new mark. It took less than a minute for the top to complete its swinging and come to a rest. When he finished the demonstration, the markings on the blackboard proved the thesis. The teacher then asked how many students believed the law of pendulum was true. All of the students raised their hands. The students, though the demonstration was over, in reality had actually just begun. Hanging from a steel ceiling beam in the middle of the room was a large, crude, but functional pendulum. 250 pounds of metal weights tied to 4 strands of 500-pound test parachute cord. The teacher invited a student to climb up on a table and sit in a chair with the back of his head against the cement wall. He then brought the 250 pounds of metal up to the student's nose. Holding the huge pendulum just a fraction of an inch from his face, he once again explained the law of the pendulum all the students had agreed to a moment before. If the law of the pendulum is true, then when I release this mass of metal, it will swing across the room and return short of the release point. Your nose will be in no danger. After the final restatement of the law, the teacher looked at the student in the eye and asked, "Do you believe this law is true?" There was a long pause. Huge beads of sweat formed on his upper lip, and weakly he nodded and whispered, "Yes." The teacher released the pendulum. It made a swishing sound as it arced across the room. At the far end of its swing, it paused momentarily, started back. I never saw a man move so fast in my life. He literally dove from the table, deftly stepping around the still swinging pendulum, and asked the class, does he believe in the law of the pendulum? The student unanimously answered no. As an auctioneer once said about all the household items he was trying to sell, folks, this here stuff is like faith. You've got to get it when you don't need it in order to have it when you do. So, when we look at the definition of faith, again, Charles Fillmore, the revealing word, he said, faith is a certain knowledge that our good is ours right now. It is of God and it goes beyond time and space. So in other words, when we talk about a law, Charles Fillmore used to talk about it being proven. Anything that was truth or law could be proven. So in this case of the student, when it did not affect him directly, they had no problem believing in faith that that pendulum would continue to swing little by little until it reached a stopping point. But when he was in the middle of it, his faith dwindled. And he dove off the table before the pendulum came back. So, of course, the students, when they asked again, did he believe in that law? The students said no. Why? Because he threw that faith out the window for the fear. Because when he truly sat in that chair, what he really had was hope. He hoped that 250-pound metal wasn't going to hit him. And when that hope no longer was there, he got out the way. How many times do we do that? We attend Unity, we attend our own churches, whatever it is. We listen to the laws and the preachings. You know, our brothers now are celebrating Hanukkah. You know, we have Buddhists. We have all of them who come to these centers and we learn what we chose to learn as our truth. But then when we're in the thick of it, do we truly have faith? Or do we hope it works? So a lot of times we don't realize that when we talk about hope, again, he talked about sense consciousness. Joseph Murphy wrote a book called The Power of the Subconscious Mind. And I love his example of what the subconscious mind and the ego mind or the conscious mind is to that of a luxury cruise or just a cruise ship. See, you have two big staff members that affect the mind. Your conscious mind. This is the one that is affected by senses. That's your captain of the ship. He's steering the ship. He can see out there. We're in winter right now. So if that ship was going through, northern waters, he may be looking for frozen parts of the water to avoid ice, things like that. Then you have your crewmen. These are the men that are in the bottom of the ship. They may be fueling the ship. They may be making sure engineering is working. They may be the cooks. They may be whatever. They know what their jobs are based on what the captain feeds them. So when your subconscious mind is constantly being told that this is the way things are supposed to be, that these are the things that happen, your faith is no longer there. It is a hope because you were told that this is how it should be. And if you've been with me long enough and you've in Unity long enough, you know the term that after a while we start shooting on ourselves and it just doesn't work out. But when that captain keeps feeding orders, now let's just say that that captain is taking all bad information and you never reach your destination because it was supposed to head to Spain, but somehow you ended up in Japan. But the crewmen only know what they were being told because they can't see. It is their subconscious mind. How many times in your life have you been in that same situation where you don't understand why you ended up there? So I may hit some points here, but I've been in this same situation. You're looking for love in all the wrong places because there are people around you telling you what love is supposed to be. Marriages, me and my wife are talking about this. We're about to celebrate our 20th anniversary this weekend, 20-year anniversary, where the norm now is 5 years because people have been told what marriage is supposed to be. People at jobs are supposed to be that way. But what happens when we stop listening to that outer world and go inside? My wife and I were talking about affirmations last night. And, I told her, I said, I grew up in a place where it was only the idiots in comedy shows that repeated affirmations. They were always the people that wanted to be rich, wanted to be more positive. And these were all good traits, but the comedy shows made them feel like they were no good or they were just clowns because they were repeating these affirmations. Now, here it is, I'm 51 years old and I'm now doing affirmations and denials because of denials and all of that. So again, I know I went through this and my wife went through this. We both were listening to people outside of us. And I'll be honest with you, most of the people we were listening to didn't even have successful relationships. I remember my wife came to me and she told me she went to see a doctor who had been married 40 something years. And she said, yeah, I think we were in our 14th year at that point. And she was talking to the doctor and he goes, yeah, don't let people tell you it's all rainbows and roses and whatever. There are going to be challenges. There are going to be times that you're going to butt heads. There's going to be time. But when love prevails and you have faith that this relationship will last, it'll be there. So you have to ask yourself, are you hoping for a good relationship? Or do you have faith that a good relationship will come? But most importantly, do you have hope in yourself? Or do you have faith in yourself? We all know the story from the Bible where the woman who had been bleeding for 12 years, she had gotten to a crowd that was watching Jesus come through, and she fought her way through the crowd, reached out and touched his garment. Now, there's a whole other story that goes with this, but we know that the most important part here is that when she touched his gown, she was healed. And Jesus said, "Who touched me?" And when he turned and saw the lady, she goes, "You have been healed by your faith." And a lot of times we skip over that line because people are like, oh, Jesus, heals, whatever. But he was telling her it was because she had faith in herself and her belief system that she would be healed by taking that action that truly brought her into that faith. What do you believe in? What do you have faith in as opposed to what do you hope will happen? We talk about the action we must take, and that's one of the biggest things too. I've experienced this a lot as myself and as, now that I've done more, I always wanted to be a professional speaker. I was thrown into a training, well, actually a presentation, which panicked me. I didn't know what to do. I ended up, all kinds of stuff happened. I never made the first one, but I went the next week and I did it. Got it out the way, had the faith that I can do it, and I did. That turned into a weekly, then it turned into twice a week where I started training people. That became rooms of 200. Yes, I was still scared each time I got up there because I wanted to make sure I was saying the right thing. And the same thing as becoming a minister when I used to speak up at the podium or I was hosting. Am I saying the right thing? Am I worried? So I was really hoping rather than having faith in my own abilities that I could do this. And here I am years later, an ordained minister, talking to you now via camera, but I've spoken on the podium many times. I just spoke at a conference and people loved it. So there's still a part of me that reaches for the hope rather than faith, but I have to remind myself that hope can become faith when I truly believe in myself. If you've listened to any of our other talks, I've always implied that you need to love yourself. And loving yourself is not, I love myself, but then putting myself down. Love is having the faith that you are perfect in this moment as you are. Knowing in faith that you can move into a better spot every day. Because every time we wake up, we have the faith that we have a new day to help us become better than we were yesterday. So again, when we talk about hope, hope is usually generated around our senses. What is it we're supposed to be? How are we hoping for? What are we doing? Faith says, I know where I'm going, and it transcends time and space. It says, I have faith that I will do this. One last share of my own story where I had an opportunity come up, and everything in me was panicked because I'm about to make a big change in my life. I've been doing the same thing for 10 years now. But faith told me that I needed to take this opportunity. The way it came in, It just told me this was a message. This was something that popped into my mind, whether it was intuition, whether it was God, whether it was spirit, doesn't matter. It was something that popped into my life. And if I am to teach what I have learned to you guys, I have to act the same way and respond to it. And I did. And the opportunity did come back. It has been offered to me. I am truly grateful for it. But it's still nerve-wracking because it's a whole new experience. But I took the chance in faith. How many opportunities have you had? How many ideas have you had that have come to you and you didn't have faith because it didn't happen fast enough? And your faith became hope because now hope tells you that, you know what, if it doesn't work out, it's okay because I just hoped for it. I didn't really believe. And you may not be telling yourself that, but that's exactly what you're doing when you're hoping. If you saw the movie Breakthrough, I love the scene of the fact of the mother when she is being told to say goodbye to her son, and she's praying and she's yelling to the point where she finally demands that he comes alive, and his thing goes on. They start having a heartbeat, and even with that, everybody told her he would not survive. He would be brain dead, and he came out okay because she had faith. Even when her faith was dwindling, even when her faith was moving to hope. Now, I'm sure there's a lot of cinematography in there and cinematic licensing in the movie because it is based on a true story. But it tells you what can be accomplished and what could be found when you fall into your faith rather than hoping that something happens. I'll tell you one thing, and this is my own opinion. So, again, somebody can come back and say, nope, you're wrong. And if I'm wrong, great, I got a chance to learn. But to me, hope is waiting and faith is action. Hope says, I hope something happens. And if it doesn't happen by that time, I'll change my mind. Faith says, I'm going to take every action, every step, everything I need to do to get to where I'm going. And that course may change once or twice. You may have to course correct. The space shuttle and any other rocket never goes in a straight line. It always veers off until it course corrects back. Same thing with our life. Things come and forth. But when you move in faith and you know that you can course correct as you go, you'll always end up where you need to be. So join us every day again for our daily dose of Advent as we continue to talk about hope and faith. Sunday we'll be lighting the next candle, which is peace. Today is Wisdom Wednesday. Hopefully you caught the daily dose before this. If you didn't, then you know it's on and you'll see it Thursday morning. With that being said, as I've always said, I love you. Nothing you can do about it. And the Namaste, which means the big, beautiful divinity in me sees that big and beautiful and honors that big and beautiful divinity in you. And I will see you in the next episode.